The city was alive with noise, horns blaring, footsteps rushing, voices overlapping. Yet, in the middle of all that chaos, a silence existed that only one person noticed. 10-year-old Malik walked home from school, his backpack slung low on his back, his shoes worn thin, each step echoing the struggle of poverty he never chose. Inside his pocket, clenched tightly in his fist, was one crumpled dollar bill. It was all he had left. The last dollar his mother gave him after working a double shift cleaning offices. Malik had been saving it for a hot meal after school, something small to quiet the hunger that gnawed at him every night. But as he turned the corner, he saw him. An old man slouched against a brick wall, clothes torn, hands trembling. His eyes were hidden beneath messy gray hair, his body shaking from hunger and cold. People streamed past him as though he didn't exist, eyes fixed on their own lives. Malik stopped, staring. His stomach growled. The old man looked down in shame, whispering to no one, "I just need a little help." Malik took a deep breath, pulled out his last dollar, and stretched out his hand. The old man's name was Henry. For days he hadn't eaten more than scraps from trash bins. Once he had been a carpenter building homes and furniture, but life's cruel turns, illness, job loss, the death of his wife, had stripped him of everything. Now he sat invisible in the middle of the city, waiting for life to end. When Malik's small hand reached forward, Henry hesitated. "No, son, keep it," he whispered, ashamed. But Malik didn't move his hand back. His big brown eyes, tired yet filled with determination, locked on the man's face. "Please take it. You look hungrier than me." Henry's lips trembled as his shaking fingers touched the boy's palm, feeling the thin, wrinkled paper. That $1, worth so little to most, suddenly felt heavier than gold. His eyes filled with tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed in years. Why would you give this to me?" Malik shrugged, his voice quiet. "Because someone has to care." The words hit Henry harder than any blow. Around them, the world kept moving, uncaring. But in that small moment, under the weight of Malik's kindness, Henry felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. Malik's stomach growled again, and Henry's heart ached. The boy should have used that money for himself, yet he gave it away without hesitation. Henry wanted to push it back, to refuse, but the boy's resolve stopped him. "My mom says God tests us," Malik said softly, "and if we can share even when we have little, then we pass." Henry couldn't hold back anymore. He broke down, crying openly in the street, hands covering his face. Passers-by slowed, curious. Some looked away quickly, uncomfortable with the rawness of the scene. But others stopped, realizing something sacred was happening before their eyes. Among the small crowd that had gathered was a middle-aged woman in a business suit. She had been rushing to a meeting, but paused when she saw the boy's trembling hand offering his last dollar. Something inside her cracked. Stepping forward, she asked softly, "Young man, did you just give him your last money?" Malik nodded. "It's okay. He needed it more." The woman looked down at Henry, who was still wiping tears. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a $20 bill, and placed it in Henry's other hand. "No one should cry alone," she said. Another man, watching silently, stepped forward and gave $10. Within minutes, strangers who normally would have walked by without noticing began digging into their pockets, offering money, food, and even warm clothes. Henry stared in disbelief as kindness multiplied before his eyes. Malik's small act had lit a fire in people's hearts. But here was the twist. Henry wasn't just any man. Years ago, he had been the owner of a small carpentry shop, known in the community for helping others. Life's hardships had buried that man, but now, because of a boy's single dollar, he felt the will to stand again. Henry clutched the pile of bills and food in his lap, but his eyes never left Malik. He stood shakily and knelt in front of the boy. "You saved me," he whispered. "Do you know what you just did?" Malik blinked, unsure. "I just gave you my dollar." Henry shook his head, tears falling. "No, you gave me my life back." The crowd around them clapped softly, some openly crying. The woman in the suit took a picture and promised she would share this moment, not for fame, but to remind people that kindness still existed in a world drowning in selfishness. News of Malik's act spread quickly. Within days, local reporters arrived at Malik's small neighborhood, where he lived with his mother in a cramped apartment. They filmed Henry, now freshly cleaned and clothed, standing beside Malik and his mother. His voice cracked as he said, "When the world forgot me, this boy remembered me. He gave his last dollar, and it brought me back." The city was moved. Donations poured in, not just for Henry, but for Malik's family, too. His mother, who had been working 2 jobs, cried as she hugged her son. "You reminded the world that kindness is never wasted," she whispered. Months later, Henry had rebuilt his life. With the help of community donations and support, he opened a small carpentry shop again, training young men who needed jobs. The first person he hired wasn't a stranger. It was Malik's mother, so she wouldn't have to work nights anymore. As for Malik, his $1 had multiplied into blessings far beyond his imagination. But he never saw himself as a hero. When asked why he gave away his last bit of money, he always gave the same answer. Because when you have nothing, that's when it means the most. The bond between Henry and Malik never broke. Every weekend, Malik would visit the shop, helping sandwood or carry tools. Henry treated him like the grandson he never had. And every time he saw the boy, Henry remembered the day a single act of kindness saved him from despair. The city had almost forgotten what it meant to care. But thanks to a poor boy's last dollar, people remembered that kindness isn't about how much you give. It's about how much of yourself you're willing to share. And so, in a world full of noise, Malik's quiet act still echoes. A reminder that even the smallest coin given with love can change a life forever.